Good morning and welcome to this week's Grow, where we gather to recharge, organize, and work here as members of MWIC. We're glad that you're joining us today as we are doing part of our summer program series, which is to move in closer. And as part of that, we have Catherine Esslinger, who is our Director of Civic Engagement, here to talk to us about local elections. So don't sleep on your local elections. And she has some Mikkel, is it Bennett? Is that your last name? With us. And she will also pipe in and share some information with us. So Catherine, I just want to go ahead and turn the time over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Rachel. I'm going to share my screen here and we can get started. I hope that all of you who are here can also pipe in when something comes up that you have an experience with. And I think you all probably will have some experience with something here. All right. So don't sleep on local elections. I know many times we think, oh, election season is over until the midterms. But no, it's always election season in some place in the United States of America. And you probably have a local election or a primary election somewhere in your county, in your city this year. Maybe you already had one. Some states have had them earlier in the year as well. So
Hey, Catherine,
one way to, oh, yes.
I can't see your shared screen. It's like a
Oh,
half shared
no.
screen.
Is it
Is
better
anybody
now?
else? No, it's just like, it's like it started to share and then it stopped. Is that the same for
It's
everybody else?
It
Is it
does
kind
say
of
it's
frozen? Yeah.
paused.
Oh, you're gonna
Oh,
have to
but it won't let
unpause
me
that.
resume.
Okay, so you'll just close it and then reshare.
Okay. All
Try
right.
that.
Let's do that. Okay. Here we go. Is it going to work this time? Is that better?
So
No.
no. Just click to exit full screen and we'll just see it with your other slides on the side.
Okay.
Sometimes it does this.
Okay.
So click on your screen.
Okay. So it won't
Yeah.
do the slideshow. It'll just do my.
Apparently
Okay.
not today.
Okay, this is a problem that we've sometimes had before. Okay, anyway, well, so you might be wondering where you might have a local or primary election. And there's a great website called ballotpedia.org where they have a tab where it says 2025 elections, and you've got a map of the entire country where you can click on your state, and then you can see all of the elections that are happening in your state. So that will include your county, your city, any other, your water district, your airport district, all kinds of other smaller elections that don't get as much attention, but are equally important to the national election, because these are things that happen and touch your life all the time. So this is where you can find out if you have some kind of a local election or a primary election happening. And then you can spread the word to all the people in your life who might not be paying attention either. So I also have this these graphs that show participation in local and primary elections. This happens to be for Idaho, for Ada County in Idaho. We just pulled these out to help our Idaho members to know kind of what was happening in their state, because they had some big important primary elections in May. So this shows you who is voting in primary elections and municipal elections. And you can see in 2023, in the primary election municipally, 16.6% of people are turning out. And those people are making decisions, selecting, like narrowing down the field of candidates in a primary so that those people who win the primary will appear on the general election ballot. Those people are making those decisions, determining who is on the ballot in November for everybody else. So 85% roughly of people did not get to see the full slate of people who had registered as candidates and didn't make a choice in that instance. So that's really frustrating to see that your choices in an election are being made by a really small proportion of voters. And you probably want to join in and be one of those people. In 2021, in the municipal election in Ada County, it was even worse. It was 1.6% of voters who turned out in a municipal primary. And that would have been for things like the library board or the other sort of small races that people might think are not very important, but those things do make a big difference in everyday life of voters. So don't miss out on this chance to select which candidates are going to appear on your general election ballot. And because you can see a lot of people are showing up for statewide and for general large, national elections, but a lot of people are staying home for those primary elections and municipal elections. And I get it. Like, I remember years ago at the end of the day before we had universal mail-in voting in Utah thinking, oh man, it's 7 p.m. and I am just done. I can't go to my polling place now. It's just too much for me. Make plans so that you can get to your polling place or so that you know how you're going to vote. So other reasons why you should care about your local elections include things like the ways that these races touch your everyday life. These are people who make decisions about garbage collection, which is really vital, road planning and repair, oversight of your local water quality, planning and maintenance of parks, public safety issues, potholes, all kinds of things that make a difference every day in your life. And it's also helpful if you can get to know who's running in your local elections, because the people who serve in local office often go on and run in higher offices. So you can get a feel for people at a local level, and then if you see them appear on ballots for higher offices, maybe you have some knowledge of what they've done. And don't sleep on this idea either. You can run for local office. Maybe this isn't your year. Maybe, 2 years from now isn't either, but keep that in mind that we need people serving. We need people being public servants, and we can all do that. We can all consider doing that. Maybe we can't all do it, but we can all consider doing it or supporting people who are our neighbors, our friends, things like that. All right. There were a lot of small offices on as I was looking for what's up for election across the country. And some of the things that I saw that were sort of new to me were things like public advocate. And I don't even know what a public advocate does exactly. Or airport authority. I didn't really know that there was a group that made choices about airports. Are there some offices in your area that that maybe are really lesser known, but that are important? Are you aware of those?
I think one of the ones that I've thought about is our water commission. I live in Arizona, and water is a really big deal. And um, it's just not something you think about so much of who's going to be in charge of the water issues. And so that's one that a few years ago kind of popped up, and I thought, well, let's look in to see who these people are that are running for this commission. And so then I dug deep on like what their backgrounds were and whether they were qualified to speak about water issues, and what did they know, and what was their expertise, and their background, and their education and things. So that was something that in the last few years I've really watched to see who's going to be in charge of helping figure out what water in Arizona, especially in my area of Arizona, is going to look like.
That's so important. Wow, great job, Rachel. Gold star for paying attention to that. That is so important. Yeah. Okay, well, there are some barriers to participating in local elections and primaries for sure. First of all, there's a lot less information. We are not bombarded with information about these because these are offices that people maybe are not spending a lot of money to run for, which is great. We want this to be a low barrier for entry for a lot of our neighbors and friends who are participating in the process. But we just don't get as much information. We don't have a ton of TV. We might not have any TV ads. There might be signs, but maybe not very many. We don't have a lot of local news coverage of these races. It's hard for a local outlet to cover everything. We might not have local news really functioning in a particular area either, because local news has been struggling so much lately. So these are some of the issues that we run into when trying to get information and be aware of what's happening in local and primaries. Also, the timing can surprise you. It can jump up in a time when you're not expecting an election. We have one on August 12th. The timing might change periodically in some years. Presidential primaries are often at a different time than local or state primaries. So it can be hard to keep tabs on when everything is happening. It's almost like you need to manage your calendar and put the dates of elections on them, primaries and local elections. So they're not always in November on the first Tuesday in November. And some of the offices that are up for election are things that are not well known. They're really low profile, and we just don't even really know what these people do. And so it's hard to get that information. Just like Rachel mentioned with the water boards or conservation offices or things like that. So those are some of the barriers that we all face as we're trying to prepare for these elections. However, we have a solution. Our solution is the voter prep party. And now this is not just for your midterm or your presidential election year. We have comprehensive materials available for download for all of our members and friends at mormonwomenforethicalgovernment.org/moving-closer. And this packet includes not only like editable printables that you can share at your event, editable spreadsheets that you can use if you're going to do a virtual event where you kind of crowdsource information. It includes games to make it fun and lighthearted. It includes invitation suggested text, instructions. We even have some mocktail recipes. If you wanted to have election themed mocktails, we include a couple of recipes just to make it really whimsical and fun and not intimidating and scary. Not as intimidating and scary as it might feel. So make sure that you go to the link to Moving Closer, where we have all of our download hosting guides. We have our voter preparation party hosting guide with all of those great materials that you can use to help you have a fun and successful voter prep party. We have a lot of principles in there also about how to set it up for success so that you can have a positive, productive conversation that doesn't devolve into fighting or discomfort in the sense of like neighbors pitted against one another. So we have a lot of suggestions about that. So here are some of the solutions that we give you in a voter prep party. So we have lack of information about the races and candidates, which is a big problem. With a voter prep party, no one person has to be the expert. As the host, you don't have to be the expert either. You can simply crowdsource the information, ask people if they know things about candidates or offices, or you can even just share what you know about quality sources, whether that's a candidate's website or local news coverage or a YouTube link to a candidate forum or debate that was held, things like that. And having people share the information that they have and is a really great way to efficiently find good information about all of those lesser known races. A lack of awareness about upcoming elections. We talked about that being a major problem. The VPP spreads the word. You are participating in helping people activate as voters and know when the election is coming up and make a plan for voting. We have a lack of connection among friends and neighbors. That's a major problem in our society today. And a VPP is an opportunity to gather and practice listening and sharing. Practicing those peacemaking skills is really, it's important. Learning about them is great, but actually using them and practicing, sometimes making mistakes, but then figuring out what you could do better is a great way of improving your ability to be a peacemaker. And the partisan rancor among friends and neighbors or avoidance of important topics of conversation. Maybe we even just perceive this as a problem. We don't know for sure what would happen if we gathered and talked about important topics. This is an opportunity for us to gather and practice and see what really happens and how can we overcome the challenges that might arise, and maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised by the things that the way it goes so well. I've held a lot of voter preparation parties with neighbors and friends, and I've never had a negative experience, which is maybe I hear from most of our members who hold them, who they have an overwhelmingly positive experience. And Mikkel Bennett wants to held one last year and wants to tell us a little bit about some of the barriers that she overcame. And then we want to talk a little bit about any other barriers that you experienced and success stories.
Hi, everyone. So I hosted a voter prep party in October last year, and just like Catherine said, I had a great experience and I really loved it. So I've been a member of MWAG for about a year and a half, and then I actually signed up as a volunteer, and I'm not even at my year mark as a volunteer. And everything I've had to do with MWAG, well, I my civic engagement skills are like at a zero when I became a member and volunteered and stuff like that. So everything I've done with MWAG, I've had to do with a dose of bravery. My enthusiasm and desire is high, but my skill was low. So it's totally normal if you're like scared to do a voter prep party. Just know you're in good company. So the inviting part, because I was pretty nervous about it, I'd never done it, I was very deliberate in my planning and very thoughtful about it. And I was specific about my invite list, particularly. I didn't want to send a mass text to my neighborhood slash ward because I was like, is anyone going to come? Because sometimes that happens with a big invite. Are there going to be contentions? So I was very particular about who I wanted. Not everyone knew each other, but they all knew me. And I kept it very local because even, a couple streets over, you might have a different representative. And so I just wanted to kind of keep the same things on our ballot. We had a big ballot and we only got maybe halfway through it, which was just fine. And in my invite, I gave specific instructions. So I shared my goal for the night with the people and I said, we're learning about ballot items and we're enjoying our time together. I laid out the expectations. So I said, everyone who comes will present on a topic. We're going to crowdsource this. We're going to break it up so it's not so overwhelming. And then I laid out some ground rules as well. We're not discussing the presidential race. This is nonpartisan. Only women are presenting because I really like the idea of empowering women. So I said spouses and partners can attend, but only women are going to be our presenters. And if you take this step, your bravery really is appreciated. I had one invitee like say, oh yeah, I saw that MWAG had talked about this. I saw an email, but I was feeling overwhelmed by trying to do it. So I'm really glad to get this invite. And then, so that's the inviting. Oh, I ended up texting about 11 people and about 8 people like all together with their spouses and stuff came. And that was a really good group for me. I held it in my living room and I can't handle much more than maybe 12. So it was really nice. We had a good discussion. So like for me, between 8 to 12 was a really good number. One tip I have is use the materials that MWEG has. They do a lot of the mental load for you. It's just done. You just have to fill in the blanks. And so Catherine mentioned there's like some slides, some spreadsheets and documents, right, to help you. I'm very familiar with those programs, so that didn't phase me to be able to edit a slide presentation or to add to and make my own or make the spreadsheet my own to fit my needs. I thought that was very easy. I actually did not use any games. I held mine like on a 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night during the school year. So I was very conscious of people's time. I started at like 8:02 and I said, we're going for this. We got a lot of cover. My neighbor across the street put their kids down for bed. They're all elementary age and then came over. So I was like, we're just going to do 1 hour. We're going to get it done. So it helped that we kind of all knew each other too. I did share the documents with the presenters. I was very clear, like, about what I expected from them. And I talked to them, texted to them beforehand. It was like, okay, how, how nervous are you to present? How hesitant are you? Because that would help me to pick like an easier or a harder race. Like, if someone was really gung-ho, I was like, great, we've got a race for attorney general, so you research these 5 candidates, you do that. And she did great. And then I had another person was like, oh, I am really interested in the school district split. So I was like, great, you do that one, you present on that one. So I talked with them to figure out what would work for them. And then I shared, like, look at these sites for research. Hey, I found this video of a debate that was held. Look at this, and just kind of consolidate that data and give some kind of like the high points, the bullet points for the presentation. So they kind of became the expert on that. As far as hosting, that was the easiest part for me. I just used my living room. I'm glad I checked my connection between my computer and my TV for displaying the spreadsheet or the slide, because we had some problems there. So it was, little tip for you to check things out beforehand. I debated a long time about serving or not serving food, but that ingrained Mormon cultural upbringing won out, and I did serve some food. I don't know if MWAG offers this every year, but they were offering a stipend to host. And so I would have hosted a party regardless of getting the stipend, but I took the stipend and did it. And that was also my motivation for food. I was like, well, MWAG's paying for it. Okay. I had no paper for people in Utah. We have mail-in ballots, so they all brought their mail-in ballots. I made sure I had emails for the spouses so that I could send out information afterward. Some of the links, some of the slides had hyperlinks for like more info. So I was like, well, here's all the info, and you can, and then fill out the rest of your ballot with this. My main takeaways is, Catherine mentioned that no one rejected my invitation. They were all like, oh, that sounds like a great idea, but some just couldn't come because of scheduling reasons. So that was really nice. It was like, oh, okay, I can do this. And then all my attendees accepted the job as co-presenter. There one exception, there was one woman who was really doubting her abilities and her skill. And I was trying to coach her through it, be like, you could just present on this amendment. It was like no one was opposed to the amendment. It just needed to be ratified by the people. And I was like, you could just do that, start with this. And she just was like, I don't know, maybe I won't even come. So I did break my rule for her on that one, because I felt it was more important for her to just start coming, start learning, start building her skills than it was to like, you have to follow my presenting rules. So I'm glad she came. But everyone else was just fine to present. And for me personally, I lean a little more on the extroverted side, and I really like to talk things out to understand. I don't stay in my head as much. I need to voice it to really like, oh, this is what I really feel like it. So knowing those things about me, the voter prep party was a great fit. I got to hang out with my neighbors, and we got to talk about the stuff on our ballot. And I'm sure if you're still a little overwhelmed, pick a friend and you guys can host it together. It's a lot easier with than just yourself. And honestly, I'll probably do a voter prep party every year, and I'll just mix up who comes. And big thumbs up for a prep party.
Wow, that sounds like a great success, Michaela. That's amazing. And you went through what you just use such care in planning. That's really outstanding. Anybody else have a success story or a challenge if they've hosted a voter prep party or even attended one? Hey, that's okay. That's okay. I often have wondered, sometimes when I invite people, is anybody going to come? But generally people do come, and it's been really it's a positive experience. And I love how Mikkel talked about how getting the experience and having friends and neighbors like practice also to build those skills and feel like they can really participate, maybe in ways that they didn't realize they could before. That's great. It's great. That's exactly what we want to be able to do in MWEC, is to build women's skills as well. So this year, you probably have some elections that you can host a voter prep party for.
Right. Well, that was awesome, Mikkel. Thank you for sharing your experience. And Catherine, thank you for laying out kind of how we can get involved and how we can and stay informed with our local elections. I put a couple links in the chat, so I'm glad that you guys can go and get some of those resources that Catherine talked about on the MWEG website. And then I also added Ballotpedia. Those resources are always available to you. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to us through MWEG Central or through, I think it's contact or at mweg.org, and ask questions and we can get it to the right person. So, but thank you for joining us. Next week, we're going to take a break for the 4th of July holiday, and then we'll be back with a media literacy. So we hope that you'll join us back and that you'll all have a safe 4th of July and celebrating our country and its independence, and hopefully we can keep it. Oh, Clarissa put on there info@mweg.org. So if you have questions that you aren't getting answers to from MWEG Central or through the website, you can always email that, and it can and we can find the answers to your questions. So thank you for joining us on this week's Grow, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.